I can understand that the topic today points to lack of communication in the system that we have evolved after elections. There is a kind of exchange going on, but it cannot be called dialogue. When you are in a state of dialogue with someone, you have flexibility of approach, you have accommodation, and you have compromise. But if you come from, let's say, the game of cricket, all you're interested in is winning and not losing. And you do not communicate too much with the loser after that. But when the Greeks started the games, it was an imitation of war. So the mentality which is bred by sport, although later civilizations tried to water down the imitation of war in it, but I think it has led us into a total lack of communication. And democracy actually needs that when you have defeated a person, then you sit with him in the parliament again and dialogue with him. Democracy actually came into being to start the dialogue which had ended through wars, which brought the nations forward through conquest or enslavement. And democracy is just the opposite of that. You have defeated a party in elections, but sitting in parliament, you have to speak with them to arrive at a middle ground where the nation can be ruled judiciously. And this is what is lacking. There is a kind of exchange going on. I don't think it is a dialogue. I don't think there is any communication taking place. And I think the results are there to see. There is a lot of noise, but there is absolutely no communication. For communication, it is important. If you get into dialogue with someone, some resilience is needed. If you have a tunnel vision, which means that you're totally inflexible, it is formed by 3 or 4 characteristics of the person who is engaging in dialogue. One is that if you have a lot of charisma, if you are imbued with nationalism, if you are self-righteous, if you are religious, ideological, then it is very difficult to bend. The best person to have a dialogue with is a trader. Trader is a person who starts in the middle and he's constantly bargaining. He's a minimalist. He will allow you to state your case. He will then retreat and then present you with another resolution till you find some kind of meeting place in the middle. It is amazing that when God thought of bringing in his last prophet, he chose a trader, and he was a constant bargaining person to such an extent that when he made the big bargain, his own co-rivals just didn't understand him. But it is amazing that in the Abbasid times, the Abbasids got involved with Aristotle, and I was always puzzled. Why Aristotle? Aristotle has the philosophy of the middle, that you have to be in the middle. Both the extremes are not desirable. And it is amazing that out of all the Greek, because the prophet kept going to Syria, which was Greek-speaking, St. Paul's country, who was a Greek speaker. And the obsession with Aristotle was really extraordinary. And it is in Europe that when Thomas Aquinas suddenly realized that the Muslims have presented Aristotle in a translated form, he was very grateful that Ibn Rushd had actually introduced this great concept of being in the middle. I think it happened because the Quran says, you are the nation of the middle. And then there was, if you go to the Hebrew dictionary, you'll find that the word for justice is haq, which means we call it haq. Quran didn't use that. Quran coined a new word, adi, which means the middle. I think that was why the Abbasids were so obsessed with Aristotle. They ignored Plato, but they probably because Aristotle was available in the written form. But today, the inability to have a dialogue within Pakistan and without Pakistan is very marked. Pakistan as a state traced a pattern of behavior in the neighborhood that tells you that it is not willing to accept reality. First you have to accept reality, then you have to approach the other party with some kind of dialogue. And I think if you're a trader, it's much better to communicate with your neighbors. We are not trading with India because we have a dispute. And we have both nuclear weapons, which means that the status quo is frozen. The world doesn't like us because we don't accept the state of mutually assured destruction. That we are still busy in what we call an asymmetric war. We should have gone and started trading with India. And the biggest example is that India is revisionist towards China the same way we are revisionist towards India. But Indian trade with China makes China the largest trading partner of India. Similarly, if we have disputes with India and we are not trading, look at Bangladesh. They have more disputes with India than we have. There are 50 rivers and their lower riparian rights are totally ignored. But they have not taken on India. They have not, gone into some kind of asymmetric war. And if today we have only 10 or 15 billion dollars in our foreign exchange account, Bangladesh has 30 million, and India this year has at least 100 billion dollars in their foreign exchange. So we have to realize that the inflexibility, the inability to have a dialogue and bargain outside is very important, and we have missed it. And today, I think if we have gone back to the IMF for the 14th time, the world is looking at us and doesn't accept anything that we say about Kashmir. Today, the world is offended with India, what they're doing to their people, but I don't think they are with us on Article 370. Not the Islamic world, not the rest of the world. They think that through the violation of the boundaries through non-state actors, we have actually harmed ourselves. The other big problem is our inability to have a dialogue within Pakistan. I think there are areas in Pakistan where the dialogue is missing. And when you don't have a dialogue, there is alienation. And I tell you, the alienation, sometimes you feel that the alienation in Pakistan is similar to Afghanistan, where there is no writ of the state. And we have actually allowed the absence of writ of the state in certain parts of the world. And now we are not negotiating with the victims. We allowed, for 2 decades, there was this Mangal Bagh in Khyber Agency. He ruled and he totally bullied the people and destroyed their lives. We had Fazlullah in Swat. He also totally ignored the local people, tyrannized them, and he was almost expected to attack Islamabad when he took action. But look at Balochistan, where there is a great need of dialogue, and we will simply not accept the reality there. We have to see that the province, the largest province in the world, in Pakistan, and a provider of great natural resources, is not properly administered. It has not been provided normal policing, normal judicial institutions, and there is an inability to accept the facts about Balochistan and their disappeared people. And if you are an advocate of the disappeared people, you tend to disappear yourself. And I think it is very important to talk to Balochistan and talk to the northern tribal areas. When we started, we thought that we would preserve the tribal life as it is. But I think sending the tribal warriors into Kashmir right after the formation of Pakistan developed a habit with us. And we kept them backward, and today we refuse to talk to the victims of almost 30 years of ruined life in the tribal areas. I think we must learn to have dialogue. We have to go over the head. The federal government has to go over the head of the provincial governments to talk to certain communities which are under pressure. I think we have to talk to the minorities very pointedly. We, of course, the Prime Minister stayed away from the possibility of inviting a very good economist who was an MD, and he sort of retreated after inviting. It was a brave act to invite him, but then he retreated. I think similarly, he has to have a dialogue with the Hindu minority living in Sindh. If there is famine in Thar area and people are died and it's all come out in pictures on the television, the federal government must not wait for the Sindh government to take action. Similarly, when Hindu girls are being maltreated in the province, the federal government must reach out, take effective steps. If the Multan Bar Association says no MD will be a lawyer here, I think it's time to take action, because they are citizens of Pakistan. We have probably not accepted them as Muslims, but they are citizens of Pakistan and have rights. The dialogue inside Pakistan is as important as dialogue outside. And of course we have problems with India because, as Hamida Riaz used to say, it was just like us and now they have proved it. But the fact is that we have suffered more in this asymmetric conflict that we have carried on with India. We have to take a deep analysis of what we have achieved and how much we have harmed ourselves. And we had, in 2004, I think, we achieved, we agreed to have a free trade area. SAFTA was a very important thing to have achieved. But then, if the Prime Minister became soft on trade and he tried to be chummy with the Indian counterpart, then the slogan was Modi ka jo yaar hai, gaddaar hai, that kind of slogan. And it is very important to note that when India was making concessions, we were not really agreed among ourselves. So SAFTA was let go. Then there was the whole idea of pipelines. And because we were not really tackling the conflict in which we were involved, all those projects, for instance, the Turkmenian pipeline, which was to come to Afghanistan, Pakistan, and then on to India, was put aside. Similarly, there was this, one is of course the Iranian pipeline, which was to come through Pakistan. The other was the offshore oil from Iran coming to Karachi and then going to India. And that actually fell through because India by this time stopped looking seriously at the project, because at that point we were actually infiltrating a lot of people into India, and some of our people were actually arrested there. Masood Azhar was arrested there. Then, of course, Osama bin Laden was here. He funded the hijacking, and the guy was taken out of there, and we were very triumphant about it. But that was not a good thing to happen for us. And then, for 6 years, Osama bin Laden lived in Abbottabad, looking after the camp where we were training people in terrorism, and he was funding it. we pretended that we didn't know. Maybe Evan Zohari is still here, but the fact is that northern tribal areas became the hotbed of conflict in the region. People walked through our tribal areas, marrying on the side. I call it, copulation, but the fact is that they were marrying our women ritually, fine, legally, but they wanted to have sex, that is all. For instance, the person who started the Islamic State, he went through our tribal areas, through Iran, to Iraq, and established the Islamic State. And we are, in a way, responsible for all that. We have to change our ways, and for that, we have to start a dialogue. Dialogue within ourselves, dialogue in Balochistan, dialogue in the tribal areas, where there's a diaspora. We should feel guilty because we didn't develop that area. There are no schools, no roads, and no economy. And the people have been going out. For instance, the largest population, second largest population in Karachi is Pakhtuns. And there are more Pakhtuns there than in Afghanistan. It is just amazing to think that the largest diaspora in the Gulf is also Pakhtuns. They had to go because their areas were not developed. And now when they have an organization and two of their leaders are members of the National Assembly, we simply do not have a dialogue with them. We think that they are somehow joined with India in Afghanistan, and India is the big enemy, and now we are threatened on the western borders. Who is responsible for that? Why is our eastern border is less dangerous than your western border now? And we were the country most suited for becoming a hub of international trade. I'm very fond of the Foreign Secretary, or former Foreign Secretary Azam Khan, who actually thinks that we should have allowed a lot of roads through. There was, of course, a time when roads were considered a kind of jeopardy, kind of a source of insecurity because outside influences came into the country and caused upheaval. But today, Pakistan is sitting in a geographical point where 3 or 4 major arteries of trade can actually take place. From Central Asia to India, and when India said, give us a trade route through Pakistan to Afghanistan, we thought it was against our security. We shouldn't think like that. We should think like a trader who's constantly making bargains. And you should think of the Prophet because he was a trader. And if the Quran says, repeats the philosophy of the Aristotle and asks you to occupy the middle ground, which means a lot of resilience. When you are in the middle, you have resilience, a lot of flexibility. But being ideological doesn't mean that you should be totally inflexible. Unfortunately, that is what it means. Because if you are charismatic, if you are ideological, you have a lot of nationalism inside you, you're not going to be engaged in true dialogue. True dialogue is a meeting of two parties in the middle with a lot of flexibility and a lot of communication which matters. Thank you.